So today I want to talk about a form of prejudice that I see all the time in the so-called progressive circles, the left, the well-educated circles, and and it affects disabled people so much, but it also affects English as second language people, young people, children, people having panic attacks, and so much more. And that is making fun of people's grammar, spelling, confusing words, and all this other stuff. And they seem to make fun of it as a butt of jokes. And then they judge people for their intelligence, they judge people based on their capabilities and knowledge, just that they said something off. And to give you an idea, and I see this like every single day, quite literally, if we go to left or progressive meme pages or watching our videos, and they'll be like, oh, look at this white person on the right, they do not know how to spell or do grammar. Like they'll make fun of Donald Trump spelling, saying kofifi, or they'll make fun of this meme. I've seen people make fun of memes for not having good grammar or spelling by so-called activists and all these other people. And the thing about this is it really, really hurts people with dyslexia like me, but also people with disability, because every day we're treated like we're less intelligent or our points are less valuable because we misspelled. I misspelled them. I've had little people. I've made projects that I've worked years on with a poster, and I've published the project stuff, and people dismissed my poster because I had a couple of spelling mistakes. I've had people tell me that I was the R word because of so I said. I've had people say that I don't know anything in all these subjects. I have been marked in progressive spaces, and I see it all times in memes, and it really does affect us. And every one of us complains about it. It makes it really hard. Then when we personally feel it, then you see the left making fun of a right person on the right for making those statements, or so-called progressive person. And what you don't realize is this is not a measure of intelligence. They could have dyslexia, they could have a bunch of disabilities, but it could also be that English is not the first language, which doesn't make the point less valid. Maybe that English is not the first language, but maybe that it's that a young child that has an excellent point. I've had people, corrupted people that have been abused or having or young children that are describing horrible things that happen to them, and a person's like, you misused the word, you mispronounced the word, and that's all they can think about, not the story behind what they're saying. And the thing is, you don't have to always be the most intelligent person in the world and know all the grammar and spelling to have a good point. I've studied some topics in STEM my whole freaking life, and some 5-year-old asked a wonderful question that I didn't think of, or someone that has not studied that subject at all almost just happened to read a paper that I hadn't read or heard it from a friend and brings in some new knowledge. I can't think of everything, but if I dismiss them because they just don't have good grammar and spelling, maybe that person is really a knowledgeable person, but English is not their first language. Maybe that person suffered trauma, and they're just describing that trauma, and it has nothing to do with how good English is, because young children tell the truth often. They just might not know what they're saying yet and how to say it correctly. The person might be, also when people in panic attacks or stuff, they misdo it. And also, who's to judge what's good grammar or spelling, or what's a good way of using words? We look at Shakespeare was famous for misspelling stuff, making up words, using bad grammar, but also a lot of civil rights leaders did it. I mean, Malcolm X was famous for his ability to talk to people, but he wasn't using proper American English, so-called. But his way of speaking got to his intended audience so much better than any proper American English. And if you see me right now, I was doing air quotes. But you can look at rappers or musicians or poetry experts that break all these rules. So all the time experts do break these rules, and that doesn't make them less intelligent, and sometimes it makes the communication even more effective. And then but people just get hanged up. And when you're making fun of someone's grammar, spelling, or them misusing a word, you're not looking at stuff to actually make fun of. Like, you're not looking at you're degrading all these groups of people, but you're also not looking at the message behind, or making fun of the message, and you derail the conversation from the actual message they're saying. So, to illustrate this point, let's talk about the famous Covfefe incident with Donald Trump. So Donald Trump famously misspelled in a tweet coffee. Well, people pretty sure it's coffee. It said Covfefe. Well, that's not a big deal, but people made fun of him for being stupid for that. That's what I had a problem with. What I found was so funny was he insisted over and over again there's a secret message that no one else got but him. Why would you ever fucking send a secret message, I'm sorry, on Twitter? That is a hilarious idea if you're the president. And that his assistant, that he could just not own up to it, and that he's that arrogant. Like, dude, you're making a fool of yourself. Just own up to it and laugh. Or when someone makes an honor, also, like, there's not a time where you can, but people just go hang up on the message. The real problem is that he can't admit that he made a mistake. That's the real problem, is that he's so arrogant. He can't admit to his mistake. And it comes up with this hilarious story that's even worse, because no one should be touting secret messages on Twitter. Or that, so like you can look at that. There's times you can have a okay laugh, but then you're making fun of like the mental illness. Like, another one is that Trump misspelled Prince of Wales and said whales like the sea animal. It's so funny. That's so funny because I see an image of a whale and I start thinking about whales. Like, you can make a lot of good jokes in that, but you shouldn't mock someone's intelligence for that. Now, what you can mock is when he again starts defending it and pretending he was totally correct, when it's so proven and easy proof that you just made a mistake. Dude, just admit that you made a mistake. You can do it with me. Like, when I was younger, I made so many funny mistakes. These are some of the funniest ones I've made, but I made so many. One is that I talked about, instead of saying precipitation, in like, I think it was 5th grade, I said perspiration. So I'm talking about the sky perspiring, and it's so funny because I confuse the word. That brings up images of the skies is sweating. But then the teacher gave me a 0 saying I don't know what I'm talking about. And then she gave good grades to the rest of the class that had no idea what they're saying. And you can look at the content of the essays and the projects. So it was a presentation. The presentation was just completely bogus with all incorrect facts. So one person presented a food web that had the grocery store as the beginning of the food web. And they got 100%, and my project didn't, because I mixed up some words. Yes, that bias does exist to that extent. Due to not the best sex education, for a long time I thought, when they had the erectile dysfunction commercials, I thought they were saying reptile dysfunction, reptile like lizard. And I then conclude, and my parents did not correct me or other people, because to keep my childish innocence. This was until way longer than you expected. So I kept imitating that people, and I saw all these old people in these commercials. So what did I think when I see all these old people? That they must be that. First I couldn't get it because people are mammals, not reptiles. But then I concluded that maybe in my smart young mind, that they stop, when you get older, you get colder more often. You can't control your body heat, his skin starts drying out, so maybe become like a reptile when you get older. And that it's reptile disorder, as you're supposed to make the older people more like mammals again, and that this somehow makes you more mammalian again. This was me being a brilliant kindergartner and first grader, then running with a theory for many years. I said, instead of sorry to bother you, for a long time thought the movie's name was Sorry to Brother You. No idea why. I thought I one time misread prosciutto as prostitute out loud. That was embarrassing. Stuff like that. One time I also thought the prostitute in the novel was prosciutto. So my mind goes both ways. It's like, you can have laughs at those silly mistakes, but then you're laughing at me because I just the mental image I conjure up. And then it gets worse, because not only now are you just judging people by unfair standards, and you're not judging them by the fair standards of them not knowing what they're talking about, not your silent voices, but you then start thinking people are intelligent or are saying good things or not. There's jokes, but the person in class that, like, people say like mansplain, whitesplain. I don't always know what the good version for disabled people would be. I guess able-splain, or neurodivergent splaining, neurotypical splaining, just doesn't have a ring to it, and T-splaining. Like, all those splaining, where a person everyone thinks they're intelligent because A, their identity, and B, because they just say so much, just crap, and use fancy language, or these academics that just say fucking nothing. I mean, and then you can just easily disprove them, but they know all the big language words. I mean, I've gone to arguments about literally what my dad's field of study with someone out my dad's field of study, but she used all this big fancy language, but she was totally wrong. I mean, she said she said that electrical conductivity doesn't very approximately linear with temperature. It does. You can look it up. There's a bunch of coefficients for it. There's a bunch of math to do the calculations. It's not perfect, but we'll say approximately, and works well beyond most devices can measure. So it's pretty darn perfect for most cases. See, and it works for hundreds of degrees Celsius. I've had a professor use big fancy language to explain the infinite monkey typewriter theorem. He was a language professor in studies. He got everything wrong. I mean, everything wrong. And I'm using little language that anyone can understand. And people do not understand what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, people are just looking at him because he's using fancy language, like he must be right. But he said that you need a finite amount, in a finite thing, in a finite combination, you'll get all possible combinations. No, you won't. And here's my proof of that. If you want to have every combination of 1,000 coins, every finite combination of heads, up, and tails, if you have 1,000 coins, you can't do a combination of 1,001 coins. You can't do one with 1,000. You can do it with infinite, because infinite has every possible pattern this randomly will start appearing. That's a different proof, but you can't do infinite. It's the infinite. Monkeys on typewriter theorem for a reason. Infinite, not finite. He said that every language, that all religions used, all religions that had a language for the religion, or holy language, it was a language that very few people know, that a priest did, and it was overly complicated and kept in secret by the priesthood and blah, blah. I'm like, no, Jewish people, Hebrew, Muslims, Arabic, both Jewish, it's common in Hebrew school or Jewish studies to teach that language. It's free for everyone to learn. it's part of religious worship. It's not restricted. I know the same thing with Muslims, with Arabic, and those are just the two groups I know, but they're pretty big. Could be other ones. His whole idea was based on his version of Catholicism. I don't even know if it's what it's called Catholicism. Just the one he was teaching. So many more. Then we also look at the language and we say it's not fancy. Like Trump, we'd say he doesn't use fancy language. But the thing is, simple language without fancy words is oftentimes even better because more people understand it. So by not only are we saying that, judging people for being intelligent or saying intelligent things when they're not, but we're also making people, we're dismissing arguments from really intelligent people that are not intelligent, even people that know what they're saying. I should stop saying that. And we're also not only doing that, we're making everyone put more effort into what they're saying. Because now you have to come up with fancy arguments with good language and grammar. This doesn't mean good language and grammar is not important, but it's important to get the point across, not beyond that. And it means we don't use our thinking skills anymore because we're not taking part in arguments. So please I know this is a long rant and ramble, but please stop this. And if you want to make fun of it, make fun of the actual argument, or make fun of the funny mental images it brings up, like Prince of Wales actually owning a whale. Like, that's funny. There's a Prince of Wales. Well, thank you very much. Please subscribe and like the channel. It really helps the channel out. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers within a year, which is really hard, and 4,000 watch hours. I'm better on the watch hours than subscribers, but I need your help. Thank you again.